in the heart of the great African kingdom of Dumari, where the golden savanna stretched farther than the eye could see. Lived Queen Malkia Zara, a woman admired not only for her power, but for her unmatched wisdom. Her son, Prince Jabari, was brave, strong, and trained to rule the kingdom with honor. Yet, despite his noble character and kindness, the queen had a rising fear that kept her awake at night. Jabari had reached the age to marry, and many families across Dumari brought their daughters to the palace, dressed in silk, wearing gold, speaking politely, and trying their best to impress the prince. But Queen Zara saw through polished words and decorated appearances. She believed that true character was revealed not in comfort, but in hardship. She had seen countless royal marriages fall apart because the wife loved jewels more than justice, luxury more than loyalty, and status more than sincerity. She had witnessed princesses who could dance beautifully but could not stand beside their husbands when storms came. Queen Zara refused to choose a bride for her son who would break the future of Dumari. She wanted a woman with a clean heart, gentle hands, and a mind brave enough to love without expecting a crown in return. But how could she find such a woman? One evening, as the sun melted behind the acacia trees and painted the sky orange and purple, the queen walked through the village disguised in a simple wrapper cloth. She watched the people, listened to village gossip, and saw how young women behaved when they did not know a queen's eyes were on them. Some were kind, some were bitter, and some only dreamed of wealth. An idea sparked in her mind, like a flame in dry grass. "I will become invisible," she whispered to herself. "Only when one does not know they are being watched, the truth of their heart appears." That night, she crafted a plan. The next morning, before the palace began buzzing with activity, the queen slipped out through a hidden back gate. Her bodyguards did not follow. Her royal robes were replaced with old fabrics. She covered her face with a faded scarf, and in her hands she carried a woven basket filled with dirt and scraps. Just like the people who survived by collecting recyclable items from the street, she had transformed herself into Mama Sefu, an old trash picker known to wander the villages quietly. Only her most trusted maid, the elderly woman named Amahol, knew the truth behind this disguise. Queen Zara walked all the way to Kayanda village, a small community on the outskirts of Dumari, where people lived simple but honest lives. The roads were dusty, children played barefoot, and women fetched water from wells while singing traditional melodies. Kayanda was known not for wealth, but for compassion. And the queen believed she might find the pure heart she was searching for in a place like this. As she walked through the marketplace, pretending to gather trash, many girls ignored her. Some looked at her with disgust, others waved her away. One girl even threw spoiled fruit near her feet and said, "Move away, old woman. You smell like the dump." Queen Zara felt no anger. She only watched silently, observing each reaction, noting which faces were filled with arrogance and which held kindness. Hours passed, and the day grew hotter. Sweat trickled down her forehead, and her feet ached from walking. She sat under a baobab tree to rest. That's when she saw a young woman named Abeni washing vegetables in a clay pot. She had no jewelry, no makeup, no fancy clothes, but she had something far more precious: gentleness. Her eyes were warm, and she hummed softly to herself as she worked. Suddenly, a bucket of mangoes tipped over from a vendor's table and scattered across the ground. People laughed and walked around it instead of helping. But Abeni didn't hesitate. She ran forward, kneeling in the dust, picking up each mango carefully and returning them to the old vendor. "You shouldn't do that," someone told her. "Let him pick his own fruits." Abeni shook her head. "Kindness costs nothing." The queen watched closely. This was the girl who treated elders with respect and children with warmth. She greeted everyone with a smile. She shared her lunch with a hungry boy. She washed her mother's feet before sunset prayer. She even approached Queen Zara still, disguised as Mama Sefu, and gently asked, "Have you eaten, mother? You look tired. Come rest near my home. I will bring you food." Queen Zara's heart fluttered. This girl had no idea she was speaking to a queen. Yet she showed compassion as if the old trash picker was her own grandmother. But the queen would not choose quickly. She needed to test Abeni more deeply. She needed to see her heart under pressure, not just in moments of peace. So she accepted the girl's offer and followed her home. The true test had just begun. Abeni's home was a small mud brick house with a thatched roof, surrounded by a fenced garden of maize, tomatoes, and cassava. Chickens wandered lazily near the doorway, and the warm smell of roasted plantain filled the air. Though the house was modest, it radiated a sense of peace, as if joy itself had taken shelter there. Abeni led Queen Zara still, disguised as Mama Sefu, the old trash picker, to a wooden stall under a mango tree. "You rest here, mother," Abeni said with a gentle tone. "I will bring you food and cool water." Queen Zara nodded quietly, pretending to be weak and tired. She watched the girl enter the house, her steps light, her humming soft and steady. Abeni reminded her of a river calm on the surface, but carrying strength underneath. Minutes later, Abeni returned with a clay cup filled with cold tamarind juice and a bowl of ugali with vegetables. She placed them in front of the queen and said, "Eat, please. You must regain your strength, child," the queen said in a shaky voice, slipping into her disguise. "You don't even know me. Why are you so kind?" Abeni smiled gently. "My mother taught me something. If you have enough to share, you have enough to care. What I give today, God will return in another way." The queen felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had met many girls with beautiful faces but cold hearts. Yet this girl's heart was glowing, even though she lived in poverty. But the test had only begun. To better understand Abeni's true nature, the queen stayed in the village for several days, moving around and observing others, how people reacted to hardship, how they treated strangers, how they behaved when no one was watching. But Abeni remained the light of Kionda village. She helped her mother at dawn, carried water from the well, harvested vegetables, tended to the goats, and even taught younger children how to read using old, tattered books. She never complained, never demanded anything, and never bragged. Even when she was exhausted, her smile stayed warm. On the third day, Queen Zara created the second part of her test. The second test, the test of humility. That morning, the queen pretended to injure her foot. She leaned against a tree, groaning softly, making sure Abeni could hear. Abeni rushed to her immediately. "Mother, what happened?" The queen clutched her ankle dramatically. "Ah, child, I twisted my foot. I cannot walk." Without hesitation, Abeni lowered herself and allowed the queen to lean on her shoulder. She lifted the old woman slowly, supporting her weight step by step. "Your clothes will get dirty," Queen Zara warned. Abeni chuckled. "Clothes can be washed, but a life cannot be replaced." The queen secretly smiled. Another test passed. The third test, the test of temptation. Queen Zara wanted to see how Abeni reacted to wealth. So she placed a heavy purse filled with gold coins under the bed where she slept in Abeni's home. She made sure the purse was slightly open so some coins would glisten in the morning light. Abeni entered the room later to sweep the floor. The moment she spotted the purse, she paused. She lifted it with caution, looked around, and whispered, "This must belong to the old woman." She didn't open it. She didn't take even one coin. Instead, she wrapped it in cloth and hid it inside a pot on a top shelf so that no thief could steal it. When the queen came in later, Abeni eagerly handed the pouch back. "This was under your bed," she said. "I kept it safe for you." Queen Zara widened her eyes in surprise, though she already suspected the girl would be honest. Most girls she had seen in other villages would have stolen at least a coin or two, but Abeni had touched nothing. The fourth test, the test of courage that afternoon, when the sun was sinking and shadows stretched across the land, Queen Zara created one more challenge. She hired 2 palace guards disguised as ordinary bullies to harass Abeni near the well. While Abeni was filling her water pot, the 2 men approached her roughly. "Give us your water," one demanded, blocking her path. Abeni stood still, fear flickering in her eyes, but her voice remained steady. "This water is for my sick neighbor. Her children have no one else to fetch it. We don't care." The man barked, pushing her lightly. Abeni did not fight back with violence, but she did not back down either. She stepped in front of the pot, spread her arms protectively, and said, "If you want the water, then you will have to take me too. I won't let my neighbor suffer." Queen Zara, hiding behind a tree, felt a powerful surge of pride. Courage didn't always roar. Sometimes it stood quietly, with trembling hands but unshakable heart. Abeni was afraid but still brave. After a moment, the guards backed away, pretending to lose interest. Abeni sighed in relief and hurried home with the water. The queen had seen enough. This girl was not ordinary. She had passed every test with sincerity and a pure heart, But one final test remained the greatest of all, the test where the queen would reveal her true identity and discover whether Abeni's kindness would remain the same when the old trash picker became a queen. The sun had barely risen when Queen Zara opened her eyes, lying on the simple mat in Abeni's small mud brick house. The gentle sounds of Kuyonda village floated through the morning air, goats bleating, women sweeping their yards, and birds chirping from the baobab trees. Abeni was already awake, as always, sweeping the compound with soft, thoughtful strokes. Her calm, steady rhythm had a strange comfort to it, like a lullaby meant not for sleep, but for peace. Queen Zara watched her quietly. For days she had seen Abeni's kindness, humility, honesty, and bravery. The Queen's heart was almost certain this girl could indeed be the woman who would protect and uplift the kingdom of Dumari alongside Prince Jabari. But she could not decide until the final test was done. Abeni needed to be tested in the most important way. How did she react to pain, to confusion, to heartbreak? A woman's true heart was not shown by how she treated a queen, but by how she treated those who broke her trust. So, the final test began. The ultimate test. The test of heartbreak. Queen Zara decided to test Abeni's willingness to help, even when it meant sacrifice. That morning, she pretended to be deeply worried, sitting on a stool beneath the mango tree, her face pale and trembling. Abeni rushed to her the moment she noticed. "Mother, what happened? Are you all right?" I just received news," the queen said in a shaking voice. "My son in the next village has fallen terribly sick. There is no one else left to care for him. I must travel quickly, and I was hoping you want me to come with you," Abeni asked gently. The queen nodded. "Yes, child, but we must leave immediately. No time for goodbyes. No time to gather anything." Abeni's eyes widened slightly. Leaving without word, without preparation, without certainty was dangerous, frightening, unfair. But Abeni didn't think long. She swallowed her fear and nodded. "If your son needs me, then I will go," she said softly. Her mother stepped forward, worry filling her eyes. "Abeni, are you sure? You don't know this journey. You don't know what danger lies ahead." Abeni took her mother's hands and kissed them gently. "If I can help a suffering boy, I must go. God will guide me." Queen Zara felt her heart swell. Even faced with fear, Abeni chose compassion. So they left the village. Abeni walked beside the disguised queen for nearly an hour, the hot African sun pressing on their shoulders. Dust rose under their feet, and birds circled overhead. Finally, the queen stopped. "Abeni," she said, her voice suddenly steady, too calm for an old trash picker. Abeni turned to her, confused. "There is something I must tell you." Abeni blinked. "Yes, mother." Queen Zara took a deep breath. "I lied to you." Abeni froze. "There is no sick son," the queen continued. "But I wanted to see if you would help even when the request was strange, difficult, or frightening." Abeni stared, feeling something inside her crack softly. "But Why would you test me? What have I done wrong?" "You have done nothing wrong," the queen said gently, "but I needed to see the truth of your heart." Abeni lowered her eyes, hurt but composed. "Mother, trust should not be tested with lies. But if someone is in pain and I can help, I will always help. That is what I believe." Her answer was not anger, not tears, just honesty and quiet dignity. Queen Zara stepped back. Then she straightened her spine. Then her voice changed, firm, powerful, royal. "Abeni, look at me." Abeni raised her eyes slowly. The queen untied her scarf and let it fall. She removed the layers of dull cloth and stood taller than she had ever stood before. Abeni gasped. Gone was Mama Sefu. Standing before her was Queen Malkia Zara of Dumari. Abeni stumbled backward and immediately fell to her knees, bowing so low her forehead touched the dirt. "Your Majesty, I did not know. Please forgive me. I thought you were a poor old woman. The queen knelt too, gently lifting Abeni's chin. "You treated me with more love than many who knew exactly who I was." Abeni's eyes trembled. "But why would a queen come to me in disguise? To see what the world hides," Zara said softly. "A beautiful face can lie. A rich woman can deceive. A girl seeking a crown will pretend. But a pure heart reveals itself in silence, in struggle, in simple acts." Abeni's hands shook. "Your Majesty, I am just a village girl. I have nothing to offer your kingdom." The queen smiled. "That is why you are worthy, because your worth is not in what you own, but in who you are." Abeni stared at her, stunned, breathless. "You have passed every test, my child," Queen Zara said. "And now, there is one more truth." She placed both hands on Abeni's shoulders. "My son, Prince Jabari, needs a wife with a heart like yours." Abeni's world spun. Her breath caught. Her heart thundered. She was speechless. But the queen's words were not a blessing. They were the beginning of her greatest battle. Because the kingdom of Dumari was not ready to accept a poor village girl as their future queen. Abeni followed Queen Zara toward the capital of Dumari with trembling steps, her heart pounding like a drumbeat. Never in her life had she imagined walking beside a queen, much less being chosen as a possible wife for the prince. Her mind raced with fear, doubt, and questions she no longer knew how to voice. They traveled through the golden savannah, the tall grasses brushing softly against their legs. As the sun climbed higher, the city of Dumari appeared like a dream on the horizon-tall stone walls, grand gates carved with lion emblems and towers that glimmered in the sunlight. Abeni gasped. She had seen the city only once as a child, from far away. Now she was entering it beside the queen. People bowed when they saw Queen Zara, but when their eyes shifted to Abeni dressed in simple cloth, dusty from travel, many began to whisper, "Who is she? Why is that village girl beside the queen? She doesn't belong here." Abeni kept her head down, walking closely behind the queen. She felt like a sparrow surrounded by hawks. The palace guards opened the massive bronze doors. Inside, the palace was breathtaking marble floors that shone like mirrors, columns carved with tribal patterns, and tapestries woven with stories of war and peace. Abeni felt as if she were walking through another world entirely. Queen Zara led her through long hallways until they reached the royal gardens. There, seated under a large jacaranda tree, reading a scroll, was Prince Jabet. He looked up when he heard footsteps. The prince was tall, his skin the warm shade of earth after rain. His shoulders were strong, his eyes deep and observant. But his expression softened instantly when he saw his mother approaching. "Mother," he greeted warmly, "you've returned sooner than expected." Queen Zara smiled. "Yes, my son. And I have brought someone with me." Jabara's gaze shifted to Abeni, dusty, nervous, clutching her hands together. For a moment, his eyes widened with surprise. Not at her clothes, not at her simplicity, but at the quiet glow of kindness in her eyes. Queen Zara explained everything: her disguise, the tests, the journey, the girl she had found. Prince Jabari listened quietly, his expression thoughtful. When his mother finished, he stood and approached Abeni slowly. "You helped my mother without knowing who she was," he said gently. "You protected her, you fed her, you cared for her. I owe you my thanks." Abeni bowed deeply. "Your Highness, I only did what my heart told me." Jabari smiled softly. "Then you have a rare heart." Abeni's cheeks warmed with embarrassment. She felt small and out of place. How could she stand before a prince when she could barely stand without trembling? The queen watched them both with hope, but the palace was not filled with hope. Somewhere behind the tall garden walls, whispers had already begun spreading like wildfire. The palace reaction: a storm of hate that evening. Queen Zara gathered her council and nobles to announce Abeni's arrival. The hall filled with important men and women dressed in gold and silk. They stood tall, their faces proud, but their eyes sharp like blades. When Abeni entered the hall, the murmurs erupted instantly. Her, the future queen. She has no royal blood. She cannot even read the sacred texts. She is a commoner. Village filth. Abeni felt each word like a stone thrown at her chest. She lowered her gaze, struggling not to cry. She had expected fear and confusion, but not this cruelty. One noble woman, Lady Nundera, stepped forward boldly. "Your Majesty," she said with a forced smile, "you cannot be serious. Our prince deserves someone of high status, someone with education, someone who understands the ways of the court." Queen Zara's eyes tightened. A pure heart is worth more than 1,000 lessons in etiquette. But the people will reject her. Another nobleman argued, "A queen must command respect. She will shame the throne. She has no lineage." The hall echoed with anger. Prince Jabari stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Respect is not bought with wealth. It is earned by character. This girl has more honor than many in this room." The nobles fell silent, but only for a moment. Then the whispers began again. uglier than before. Abeni felt her breathing grow shallow. She had always known she was poor, but she had never felt ashamed till now. Queen Zara placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Do not fear, my child. You are stronger than their words." But Abeni shook her head. Her voice trembled. "Your Majesty, I do not belong here. These walls were not built for someone like me." The Queen's heart ached, but Prince Jabari stepped closer, his voice firm. "Abeni, do not let their pride decide your value." His words were warm, but the pressure around her chest did not ease. The weight of a kingdom's hatred was too heavy. That night, alone in the small guest room of the palace, Abeni sat by the window and stared at the moon. Tears traced her cheeks silently. She whispered to herself, "What am I doing here? I will never be enough." But she did not know that danger was approaching. Because not everyone feared the Queen's decision. Some feared losing power, and in the shadows of the palace, a plan was forming, one that threatened not only Abeni's place, but her life. Abeni woke before dawn, unable to sleep after hearing the noble's cruel whispers echo inside her head. She walked quietly through the palace corridors until she reached the courtyard. The sky was still dark, with only a faint silver glow on the horizon. She wrapped her arms around herself, as if trying to hold her courage together. She had never felt so alone. Suddenly, she heard footsteps behind her. When she turned, she was shocked to see Prince Jabari standing there, dressed simply, without guards or royal robes. His eyes were soft. "You couldn't sleep either?" he asked. Abeni lowered her gaze. "No, Your Highness, this place. It doesn't feel like mine." Jabari stepped closer. "Abeni, my mother did not choose you lightly. You showed her the kind of heart that can heal a kingdom. Damari needs a queen who knows suffering, who knows kindness." Abeni looked at him helplessly. "But the people hate me. They don't know you yet," he said gently, "and some never will. But that does not mean you do not belong." Abeni listened, but fear still clouded her heart. Before she could reply, the sound of hurried footsteps approached. It was Queen Zara, her face tense, her robe flowing behind her as she rushed toward them. "Jabari, Abeni, come at once. There is trouble in the council chamber." The prince and Abeni followed her quickly. The plot against Abeni inside the council chamber. Chaos erupted. Nobles shouted at one another, guards stood stiffly at attention, and advisors whispered frantically. On the table lay a letter sealed with the emblem of Lady Nundiro, one of the loudest voices against Abeni Queen. Zara picked up the letter and read aloud. "This village girl must be removed before she taints the throne. I have sent men to take her away tonight." Abeni's entire body went cold. The Queen's voice hardened. "My guards intercepted the men just hours ago. They were armed. They were coming for you. Child." Abeni's breath trembled. "They wanted to kill me." Queen Zara nodded grimly. "Not kill. They planned to drag you far from Dumari, so you would never return." Jabari clenched his fists. This has gone too far. I will have Lady Nandira arrested immediately. But Abeni shook her head quickly. No, please. If she is arrested, the nobles will hate me even more. The Queen frowned. You want us to ignore an attack on your life? Abeni took a slow breath. No, but hate cannot be beaten with more hate. There must be another way. The Queen and Prince exchanged glances. This girl, even in danger, thought of peace before revenge. Abeni continued, her voice soft but steady. Let me speak to them. Let me face them myself. The Queen blinked in shock. You want to face the nobles alone? Abeni nodded. If I run, they will call me weak. If I stay silent, they will call me unworthy. But if I speak with honesty, maybe they will hear me. Prince Jabari placed a hand over his heart. Then I will stand beside you. Queen Zara smiled with pride. And so will I. The girl who stood before a kingdom later that morning, the throne hall filled with nobles, guards, and citizens. The tension was thick, like a storm hanging in the air. Lady Nandira stood proudly among her supporters, her chin lifted, her eyes sharp. When Abeni entered, the hall erupted with murmurs. There she is, the village girl. She doesn't belong here. But Abeni walked with grace, her back straight, her hands calm, even as her heart pounded. Queen Zara stepped aside. Prince Jabari stood beside her. Abeni stepped forward alone. She looked at the crowd not with fear, but with sincerity. When she spoke, her voice was soft, but carried across the hall like wind through tall grass. I know many of you do not want me here. I know I am not rich, or educated in your ways, or born into a noble family. Her words made the whispering stop. But I did not come to take anything from you. I came because the Queen saw something in me that I did not even see in myself. Some nobles looked away ashamed or unsure. I do not have jewels, Abeni continued. I do not have land or status. But I have a heart that cares. A heart that protects, a heart that listens. She lifted her chin, and if that is not enough to be a queen, then I will walk away now. Gasps filled the hall. Prince Jabari stepped forward instantly. Abeni, but she raised her hand gently, stopping him. Let the people decide, she said. The hall fell silent. Queen Zara stepped forward. Very well, people of Dumari, speak now. Should this girl remain by the prince's side? The nobles hesitated. The people whispered, then an elderly woman from the crowd stepped forward. She fed me when I was hungry. The woman said, I saw her in Kyonda village. Another man added, she helped my brother when he was injured. Soon voices rose, one by one. She is kind, she is brave, she is honest, she will make a good queen. Even the nobles lowered their heads. Lady Nandira stood frozen, her plot exposed, her arrogance shattered. Finally, Prince Jabari walked to Abeni, took her hand gently, and said, Abini of Kianda, will you walk beside me as my wife, my partner? And one day the Queen of Dumari, tears filled Abeni's eyes, not of fear, but of acceptance. Yes, she whispered. The hall erupted in cheers. Queen Zara embraced her warmly. You have earned more than a crown, my child. You have earned a kingdom's heart. The ending Abeni married Prince Jabari beneath the shade of the great baobab tree. The people celebrated for 7 days, and even the nobles bowed before her with respect earned, not given. She became known as Queen Abeni, the girl who rose from dust to destiny, not by power, but by the purity of her heart. And the kingdom of Dumari flourished under a queen who once helped a stranger she mistook for a simple trash picker. The kingdom never forgot. Kindness is the crown that shines the brightest.